You've ever heard of a movie called Into the Wild? It's an amazing story based on a true story about a young man who changed his life by changing how he thinks. Chris McCandless was a bright young man who just graduated from college. He had everything going for him: a promising future, a loving family, and many opportunities. But instead of embracing this good fortune, Chris did something totally unexpected. He gave most of his money to charity, said goodbye to his family and friends, and then set off on a journey into the Alaskan wilderness. Chris wanted to live a simple life close to nature and escape the pressures of modern society. He walked hundreds of miles through the wild, carrying all his belongings on his back. Despite the harsh conditions, he kept going until he reached his destination, the rugged and remote Denali National Park. There, Chris built a small shelter out of natural materials and lived off the land, hunting and fishing for food. He spent months in complete solitude, away from any form of modern civilization. During this time, he encountered many challenges, including dangerous animals, extreme weather, and the threat of starvation. But through it all, he remained determined to live his life on his own terms. One day, however, Chris's luck ran out. He was found by a group of park rangers who were conducting a search for a missing hiker. They offered him food and supplies and then persuaded him to return to civilization. Chris eventually agreed, and with their help, he left the park and returned to the outside world. When Chris returned home, he was a changed person. He had learned to appreciate the simple things in life and had gained a deep respect for nature. He also realized the importance of human connection and the need for community support. Chris began sharing his story with others, inspiring them to follow their dreams and live life on their own terms. Sadly, Chris's story ended tragically when he was killed in an accident at the age of 24. Despite his short life, he left behind a legacy that continues to inspire people around the world to push their limits and pursue their dreams. The movie is super inspiring, but what really makes it special are the lessons we can learn from it. These lessons are important for anyone who wants to achieve their goals and live a fulfilling life. So let me ask you a question. Are you living your life on your own terms, or are you following someone else's path? Are you chasing your dreams or someone else's? Are you afraid to take risks, or do you prefer to play it safe? Well, if you answered yes to any of these questions, then this movie is definitely for you. In today's English lesson, we will explore some powerful vocabulary and natural expressions from this amazing story. As we discuss each phrase, I'll explain its meaning and provide you with examples so that you can see how it's used in a sentence. Let's dive in. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the expression to embrace good fortune. This means to accept and enjoy good luck or success. In the story, Chris had every reason to embrace good fortune. He had a great education, a supportive family, and many opportunities ahead of him. But instead of taking advantage of these blessings, he decided to change his life completely. To embrace good fortune, you need to be grateful for what you have and make the most of the opportunities that come your way. Our second expression is to give most of his money to charity. This means to donate a large portion of his money to help others. Chris was deeply moved by the suffering of people around the world, and he wanted to do something to make a difference. So he decided to give most of his money to charity. To give most of his money to charity, you need to have a generous heart and a willingness to help those in need. Now let's talk about the phrase to set off on a journey. This means to begin a trip or adventure with excitement and anticipation. Chris was eager to start his journey into the Alaskan wilderness, and he couldn't wait to experience all that nature had to offer. To set off on a journey, you need to be curious and open to new experiences. Next up, we have the expression to carry all his belongings on his back. This means to carry all of his possessions, such as his clothes, food, and camping equipment, on his back. Chris was determined to live as simply as possible, and this meant that he had to carry everything he owned with him wherever he went. To carry all his belongings on his back, you need to be strong and resilient. Moving on, we have the phrase in complete solitude. This means to be completely alone without any other people around. Chris spent many months living in complete solitude in the Alaskan wilderness, and this allowed him to connect with nature in a deep and meaningful way. To live in complete solitude, you need to be independent and self-sufficient. The next expression we'll be discussing is to encounter challenges. This means to experience difficulties or problems. Throughout his journey, Chris encountered many challenges, such as dangerous animals, extreme weather, and the threat of starvation. However, he never gave up, and he kept moving forward. To encounter challenges, you need to be brave and persistent. The next phrase we're going to talk about is to persuade someone to do something. This means to convince someone to take a certain action. The park rangers were concerned about Chris's well-being, so they tried to persuade him to leave the park and return to civilization. To persuade someone to do something, you need to be respectful and empathetic. Next up, we have the expression to return to civilization. This means to go back to the normal world after being in a remote or primitive place. After spending months in the Alaskan wilderness, Chris finally agreed to return to civilization. To return to civilization, you need to be willing to leave your comfort zone and re-enter the outside world. Last but not least, the final expression we're going to discuss is to share his story with others. This means to tell his experiences and adventures to other people. Chris was inspired to share his story with others in the hopes that it would motivate them to follow their dreams. To share your story with others, you need to be confident and passionate about your experiences. We've now covered all the key expressions and phrases from our story. Let's quickly recap them to make sure you fully understand each one. We started with the expression to embrace good fortune, which means to accept and enjoy good luck or success. Then we looked at the phrase to give most of his money to charity, which means to donate a large portion of his money to help others. Next up, we have the expression to set off on a journey, which means to begin a trip or adventure with excitement and anticipation. Moving on, we have the phrase to carry all his belongings on his back, which means to carry all of his possessions on his back. Following that, we discussed the expression in complete solitude, which means to be completely alone without any other people around. The next phrase we covered was to encounter challenges, which means to experience difficulties or problems. After that, we looked at the expression to persuade someone to do something, which means to convince someone to take a certain action. Next up, we have the phrase to return to civilization, which means to go back to the normal world. And last but not least, we discussed the expression to share his story with others, which means to tell his experiences and adventures to other people. Now that you've learned these important vocabulary words and expressions, I challenge you to put them into practice. Try using them in a story of your own or in a conversation with a friend. You can also use them to describe your own experiences and adventures. Don't be afraid to experiment and have fun with the English language. Remember, the more you practice, the better you'll become. So go out there and give it a try. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing English lessons. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery and self-improvement. I hope you've enjoyed learning these new vocabulary words and expressions, and that you will put them into practice in your own life. Remember, the power to change your life is within you. All you need to do is believe in yourself and have the courage to follow your dreams. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep chasing your dreams. Goodbye.